ይሰማችኋል? ይሰማል?
ይሰማል።
በጣም ጥሩ። Welcome to grade 11 chemistry. How was your summer?
ምንም አይልም ሚስተር።
ምንም አይልም ማለት በጣም ጥሩ። All right, so we'll start. Okay. Please sign up with your name. Otherwise, we will not let you to attend the class. Okay, so make sure that you sign at least with your first name. All right, so today we'll unit 1. Say what?
ይሄ ትክክል አይደለም።
ምንድነው አልገባኝም።
ዳኒ ብቻ ነው የጻፍኩት የነበረው።
ዳንኤል ምንም ችግር የለም። አሁን አንዳንዱ ሰው ሳምሰንግ ምናምን ስለሚል ስማችሁን እየጠራን ፓርቲሲፔት እንድታደርጉ and attendance ስለሚያዝ ማለት ነው። ለዛ ነው ግልጽ ነው። so at least በመጀመሪያ ስማችሁ ብታደርጉ ጥሩ ነው። all right so ዛሬ we'll discuss the first unit of grade 11. But before I proceed to this topic, grade 11 chemistry is, I think, the most challenging subject that you will encounter in grade 11. ስለዚህ በደንብ we have to study very hard. ብዙ dedication ይፈልጋል። እሺ? Now, with that in mind, we'll start unit 1, which is fundamental concepts in chemistry. So the topics that are going to be covered include the scope of chemistry, basically the scope of chemistry, and then we'll proceed to measurements and units probably tomorrow, and then finally we'll see chemistry as experimental science. So this unit is very fundamental. Remember, science ማለት it is simply what measurement ማለት ነው። So ይሄን ማወቅ is very critical to be able to communicate with other scientists. ስለዚህ ያ ነው basically የምንማረው ማለት ነው። ለምሳሌ if you produce a paper, there are ways that you can communicate with other scientists all over the world ማለት ነው። ለምሳሌ አሁን ወደ significant figure ምናምን ስንማር እናየዋለን ማለት ነው። Now, so the objective of today's session is to understand the scope of chemistry. So in this topic, we'll see the scope of chemistry, we'll define what chemistry is, and then we'll see the major branches of chemistry. Now, let us define what chemistry is. I'm sure you all know what chemistry is. So I have a very simple definition of chemistry, which is the study of the composition of matter and the changes that matter undergoes. So this is very important. Composition as well as the changes that matter undergoes. Okay, just hold on. Let me. All right, now let us define what matter is. I'm sure you all know what matter is. Matter is anything that has mass as well as what? Volume, or that takes up space. So this is from grade 7. Very simple definition of matter. So you should know what matter is, what chemistry is. And now let us define what property is. So this is any characteristics that can be used to identify matter. So we'll see two types of changes. The first one is physical change, and the second one is chemical change. Now let us see what physical change means. In this change or characteristics, there are changes that can be observed without changing a substance into another substance. And remember, they are very easily reversible, physical property or change. For example, take for example ice. If you take it from a refrigerator, it melts. So when an ice, which is a solid, changes to a liquid, water, this type of change is called physical change. So they are very easily reversible and they are observed without changing a substance into another. So no new substance is formed during this process. And remember, they are not marked by any external effects. Also, no change of mass occurs. And remember, they do produce no new kind of matter. This is not accompanied by heat change. For example, let's take some examples: boiling point, density, mass, volume. So these are some examples of physical change. The other change that we are going to discuss is chemical change. So these changes can only be observed when a substance is changed into another substance. So here, there is new substance that is formed and can always produce a new kind of matter. So for example, if you burn a paper, the product is ash plus carbon dioxide. So these are different from the original substance or material. Therefore, this kind of change is referred to as chemical change. And remember, this type of change is usually accompanied by a considerable amount of heat change. And they produce individual substances whose masses are different from those of the original individual substance. Flammability, corrosiveness, reactivity with acids are some examples of chemical change. So this is very basic principle from grade 7, I think. Now, there are two types of physical property. So this is very important. And you will be asked such questions in your national exam. So you should remember these two terms. Now, the first term is intensive properties. Now, what do we mean by intensive? A change or a property that does not depend on a sample size, on the amount of size. For example, melting point, temperature, these are intensive properties because they don't depend on the amount of the sample size. Now, the second property is extensive. You can interrupt me anytime when you have questions. Extensive properties are properties that do depend on samples. For example, length, volume, mass, these are properties that depend on the sample size. Therefore, these properties are referred to as extensive properties. All right? Okay, so this is what we already discussed, physical change. These are changes in matter that do not change the composition of the substance. So changes of state, temperature, volume, these are physical changes. Chemical changes, they result in new substance. So when you produce new substances, the change is referred to as chemical change. So for example, is combustion, oxidation, decomposition. These are some examples of chemical. Now let us proceed to areas of study. So traditionally, there are 5 areas of study in chemistry. And this include organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, biochemistry, analytical chemistry, and physical chemistry. So I'll give you a brief definition of each of these areas of study. So I'm sure you remember organic chemistry from grade 11, I mean from grade okay, who can define what organic chemistry is?
Organic chemistry is a chemistry of carbon compounds.
Exactly, excellent. And who are you? Ida? No?
Ida.
Exactly, okay, thank you. But I'm Gomez. Exactly. So organic chemistry is simply a study of all chemicals containing carbon. Remember, there are exceptions, but this is simply a simple definition of organic chemistry. The study of all chemicals containing carbon. Now, these are some examples. Fuels, plastics, perfumes, pharmaceuticals. These are some examples of organic chemistry. Now, who can define what inorganic chemistry is?
It is the branch of chemistry that studies about elements in their compounds, except most of the carbon atoms.
Excellent. Exactly. So this branch of chemistry deals with all elements except carbon. Exactly. So some examples include metals, minerals, electrons. So these are some examples of. All right. The third area of study of chemistry is biochemistry. So this is a branch of chemistry which studies processes that take place in living organisms. So biochemistry, you will deal this branch of chemistry in grade 12. So just remember, it is simply a study of chemistry that studies processes that take place in living organisms. So you will do this in grade 12. Now, the other branch, the fourth branch of chemistry is analytical chemistry. And this area of chemistry focuses on the composition of matter. So we'll do this later on. The last branch or major area of study chemistry is physical chemistry. So this area of chemistry deals with mechanisms, rate, as well as energy transfer. So we'll deal with mechanism and rate in grade 11, and then you will learn energy transfer or thermochemistry of the matter in grade 12. So this physical chemistry is a branch of chemistry which deals with mechanism, rate, energy transfer that occurs when matter undergoes change. Mechanism, when we say mechanism, we mean the way changes occur. Rate, the speed with which things change. So energy transfer, for example, from mechanical to chemical, chemical to electrical. These types of energy transfers will be dealt in grade 11. So this is about the major branches of chemistry. The other point is careers in chemistry. I'm sure you'll be excited to know that there is plenty of career opportunities for chemists. The first one is teaching. which I love. And the second one is research, engineering, medicine, environmental, manufacturing, management. I mean, you can mention a lot of careers that chemistry is involved. So these are some of the career opportunities for students in chemistry. Now, before I proceed to measurement, I am going to pose some questions and I'm going to ask you individually. So now the first one, so identify the following physical properties as extensive or intensive. Density. Now let me give a chance to Elfaz. Can you hear me? Elfaz? Okay, I can't hear Elfaz's voice. So let me proceed to Fish.
Intensive.
Intensive. Why? Remember, density is defined as mass over volume, right? Both mass and volume are what? Extensive. Because density is a ratio of mass and volume, the ratio will be always the same. Because these two things are what? They are extensive. Therefore, density is an intensive property. Excellent. Fish, you did well. All right. Now, Ebenezer. Let's see. Heat. Ebenezer. Okay. Amar. Okay. Aida.
أنا مستر أمر.
Yes. Who are you?
أمر.
Amar. Okay, Amar.
Intensive. Heat.
Heat is intensive.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. Heat depends on what? Remember, when we say extensive properties, we mean that a property that depends on the amount of substance, right? So heat, which is a physical property, is dependent on what? On mass, right? Therefore, this physical property, which is heat, is an extensive property. Remember, I think you learned this in grade 9 or 10 in physics. So you should remember, heat is an extensive property because it depends on the amount of sound, okay, or size of a sample. All right, Ida. Okay, let's see. Temperature. Okay, Brooke.
Intensive.
Exactly. Temperature is intensive because it doesn't depend on the amount of stuff. Okay. Excellent. All right. Let's see. Danny. Resistance. Okay. Edna.
Thank you.
Okay, she's out. El Bethel. Iman. Huh? I can't hear you correctly. Can you say it loudly? Okay, I can hear you. I think Neo. Yeah, I think extensive. Excellent. Excellent. Resistance is an extensive property, because I'm sure you remember the definition of resistance from grade, I think, physics like grade 9 or 10 temperature times. It is inversely proportional with area and directly proportional with size. Therefore, this this physical property is an extensive property. Excellent. How about resistivity? Now, I don't know. Okay. Yo. Okay. Harun. Harun.
Intensive.
Intensive. Excellent. Govers. Exactly. Resistivity is an intensive property because it does not depend on the amount of substance. So this is an inherent property of a material matter. Resistivity. Excellent. Now, conductivity. Heaven.
Extensive.
Conductivity. Conductivity. See, this is not an extensive. Extensive question.
Extensive.
Extensive. Conductivity minimalism. Look under resistivity. It is an inherent property of a material. ማለት አሁን ለምሳሌ አንድ material conductive ነው አይደለም ብትይ on the amount of a substance ምን ያደርግ depend ያደርግ. So resistivity እና conductivity, they are intensive properties. ግልጽ ነው? Resistance ግን because it depends on length and area ብለናል. on the amount of substance depend ያደርጋል ማለት ነው. For that reason ምንድነው የምንለው? Resistivity እና conductivity intensive property nature, whereas resistance is an extensive property. Oh, okay. Now, Heyman, next question. Conductance.
Intensive.
Okay. Now, see, here degree of conductance. ልክ እንደ resistance ማለት ነው. Conductance ስንል it is an extensive. ምክንያቱም አሁን amount of on the amount of a sample depend ያደርጋል ማለት ነው. Conductance እና resistance. Conductance ማለት እኮ የማን reciprocal? It is the reciprocal of what? Resistance አይደል? Grade 10 ይሁን I don't know. Physics ላይ ግን ተምራችኋል። ስለዚህ when conductance and resistance are extensive properties, whereas resistivity and conductivity. እነዚህ when you say resistivity and conductivity, inherent property of a sample nature. So they don't depend on the amount of a substance, whereas conductance and resistance a measurement of conductivity. So ይሄ ምን ላይ depend ያደርጋል? Amount of a substance. Remember, conductance is an inverse proportion of resistance. ስለዚህ በዚህ ምክንያት ይሄ extensive property ነው እንላለን ማለት ነው። ግልጽ ነው? ኤመን ኤመን?
አዎ ሚስተር።
ግልጽ ነው አይደል ያልኩት? አሁን ለማለት ፈለኩት ሬዚስቲቪቲ እና ኮንዳክቲቪቲ ኢንሄር ፕሮፐርቲ ማለት አንድ ለምሳሌ አንድ ሳብስታንስ ኤሌክትሪክ ማስተላለፍ can conduct electricity or not። ስለዚህ ይሄ inherent property ነው ማለት ነው። It doesn't depend on the size of the sample. Whereas resistance ስንል ግን ወይም conductance ስንል ግን ዲፋይን ያደረግነው ለምሳሌ ግሬድ 10 ይሁን I don't know 9 ፊዚክስ ላይ resistance ዲፋይን ስናደርገው ይሄ ሮ ማለት resistivity times length over area አድርገን ነበር ካልኩሌት ያደረግነው resistance and conductance ደግሞ የዚህ ምንድን ነው reciprocal። ስለዚህ ምን ማለት ነው እነዚህ amount of substance ላይ ዲፔንድ ስለሚያደርጉ these two properties are extensive ማለት resistance and conductance are extensive properties, whereas resistivity and conductivity are intensive properties because they are simply inherent properties of a sample ስለሆኑ ማለት ነው። Am I clear? ግልጽ ነው ለማለት የፈለኩት? Alright. ግልጽ ነው?
ሚስተር
እሺ ጥያቄ የለም። እሺ በጣም ጥሩ። ህይወት ማስ
extensive,
ኤክሰለንት ኤክስተንሲቭ በቃ ቬሪ ሲምፕል። ምክንያቱም ማስ 1 ኪሎ 2 ኪሎ ለምሳሌ ቢኖር ክብደቱ ይለያል አይደል? 1 ኪሎ 2 ኪሎ እያለ ነው። ሶ ሳምፕል ሳይዝ ላይ ዲፔንድ የሚያደርግ ከሆነ we call it extensive. Excellent. ማህሌት boiling point ማህሌት say something እንዳለሽ ይሰማኛል። እሺ ማስተዋል ኦኬ ማስተዋል የለችም።
አለው
እሺ
የቦይሊንግ ፖይንት ነው ሚስተር።
ኤግዛክትሊ
ኢንቴንሲቭ
ኢንቴንሲቭ ኤክሰለንት። ስለዚህ ለምሳሌ ዋተር ካለን it boils at 100 degrees Celsius. ስለዚህ this is an intensive property. All right, excellent. Magdalite, very simple question. Length እድለኛ ነሽ።
ኤክስቴንሲቭ
Extensive, excellent, ጎበዝ. And finally, milky, no? Okay. Nahum, I think if I pronounce it right. Okay. Now
Extensive, mister.
Excellent. Extensive. እሺ ጎበዝ ቮሊዩም ነው አለ እኮ እሺ ናትናኤል
Yes, mister.
እሺ relative density is it intensive or extensive?
Extensive.
Hold on, let me give this a chance to Rahel. Rahel. Okay. Ready it.
Intensive.
I can't hear it. Can you say it again, please? Better by some.
Intensive.
Intensive. Exactly. Not nice. Remember, density is density because it's the ratio of mass and volume. Ratio is one. Now, let's say mass we volume when mass decreases, volume decreases. So if you take the ratio of mass and volume, constant. So let's now let's say take for example water. Water has a density of what? 1.0 carbon. So let's say and liter on a liter yellow mass between density will give them and so let's say this physical property is an intensive property. Relative density density this type of density is relative to water. So let's see, relative density and number normal. So this is also an intensive property. Okay, now ሌላ ምን ጠይቃችሁ አንድ አራት ልጆች ስላላችሁ እሺ root
Intensive.
Intensive. Excellent. So the melting point, boiling point, energy, they are intensive properties because they don't depend on the amount of substance. Go over it. አሁን አይመጣልኝም ደግሞ ጥያቄ ትንሽ ላምብን ምን I think አሁን እኔ ምንም ባስብ ሊመጣልኝ ስለማይችል ከሴምፕል ጀምሮ ነገ ተጠይቃችኋለሁ ና ምንድነው ኦኬ ጥያቄ ነው ሂት ኢንቴንሲቭ ነው ወይስ ኦኬ ኦልሬዲ መልሼዋለሁ ኤክስቴንሲቭ ነው ጽዮን ምክንያቱም the reason is because it depends on the amount of substance ብለን ጽዮን ኤ ልለው ማለት ነው alright ግልጽ ነው እሺ any questions I think let me entertain your question and then we'll proceed to measurement ማለት ነው ስለዚህ በጣም ኬሚስትሪ በጣም ነው ደስ የሚለው እሺ ብዙም እንድትፈሩትም አልፈልግም ግን you have to study hard ስለዚህ አሁን ለምሳሌ for every one credit እዚህ የምንማረው you have to dedicate at least 3 hours ቤታችሁ ሄዳችሁ እሺ ከዛ በኋላ ደግሞ ብዙ ጥያቄ መስራት አስፈላጊ በደንብ አድርጋችሁ ኮንሰፕት ነው አሁን የሚያስፈልገው ሽምደዳ ብዙም አያስፈልግም you have to know the concept now any question I think that's all I have for today ግን እስኪ ስንት ደቂቃ አለ አንድ 10 ደቂቃ አለ
ጥያቄ አለ
እስኪ ጥያቄ ካላችሁ
ጥያቄ አለ ሚስተር
እስኪ ድምጽ
ጥያቄ
እሺ go ahead
ሂት እንዴት ነው ማስ ላይ ዲፔንድ የሚያደርገው
ኦኬ አሁን እንትን ስንተኛ ክፍል ፊዚክስ አልተማራችሁም ኪው ምናምን ብላችሁ ፊዚክስ ላይ አሁን ፎርሙላው ሳረሰው አልቀርማችሁን ነገ አመጣልሻለሁ እሺ ነገ ስለምማር ክላስ ስላለን እንትኑ አመጣልሻለሁ ግን ኪው ማለት ይሄ ሂት ምንለው ማለት ነው በኬሚስትሪ እንትኑ አመጣልሻለሁ ያው የፊዚክስ ስለሆነ ለዝም የተወኩት እንጂ ነገ አመጣልሻለሁ ፎርሙላ so you will see how this is related to amount of sample የሚለውን clearly ልክ እንደ ሬዚስታንስ ምናምን አሁን የሬዚስታንስ ስላረሰውት ነው ሮ ታይምስ ኤል ኦቨር ኤ ምናምን ነው አይደል ፊዚክስ ላይ inversely proportional with area መሰለኝ አይደል ስለዚህ ልክ እንደዛ amount of substance ያልነው ዲፔንድ ያደርጋል እሱን ነገ አመጣልሻለሁ ማን ይጠይቀኝ
ሰምፔር ነኝ እሺ ሚስተር አመሰግናለሁ
ሰምፔር በጣም ጥሩ ስለዚህ ሪማይንድ ምትሞር እኔ አሁን ሳረሳ ቤት ገብቼ አመጣልሻለሁ የፊዚክስ ስለሆነ ነው የተውኩት ብዬ ማለት እሺ
አመሰግናለሁ
ጥያቄሽ መለስኩልሽ በቃ ሪማይንድ ምትሞር እሺ another question ጎበዞች በቃ እንደዚህ እኮ ነው you have to ask if you want to understand chemistry በቃ ask a question ምንም እኔ ላልመስላችሁ ይችላል ምንም ችግር የለውም ሌላ ሰውም እየጠየቁ ምናምን ላመጣላችሁ ምንም ማፍራ ያስፈልጋል ኬሚስትሪን አንደርስታንድ ለማድረግ እንደዛ ነው all right any other question so tomorrow early ለመምጣት ሞክሩ and please sign up with your first name ከቻላችሁ last name ጨምሩበት I think ምክንያቱም ጥያቄ እንደዚህ ሲሰጣችሁ እንትን ስማችሁን እየጠራው እሱም እንዳለው ሚስተር እንዳለው አቴንዳንስ ስለሚወስድ እንደዚህ ብታረጉ ጥሩ ነው so አሁን ለምሳሌ እዚህ ጋር እዚህ የሚላለ ነገ አላስገባህም ወይም አላስገባሽም so make sure that you sign with your first name and if you can with your last name አሁን እንደማስተዋል ምናምን አንዳንዶቻችሁ ስለማውቃችሁ ምንም ችግር የለም all right so I think that's enough for today we'll start discussing measurements in chemistry በጣም interesting part ስለዚህ ነገ we'll see measurements and units in chemistry ምን ማለት ነው measurement ከዛ በኋላ ደግሞ ቀላል ነው units in chemistry so ነገ ትንሽ ወረቀት ይዛችሁ መምጣት አለባችሁ ማለት ነው ምክንያቱም ጥያቄ ሲሰጣችሁ ይሄን ወደዚህ ቀይሩ ምናምን ልላችሁ ስለምችል ካልኩሌተር መጠቀም አይፈቀድም you're not allowed to use calculator ግን አሁን ካሁን በኋላ ፕራክቲስ ማድረግ አለባችሁ በቃላችሁ መስራት አለባችሁ so ይሄን ካልኩኝ I'll see you tomorrow have a good night ጥያቄ ከሌለ ጨርሻለሁ thank you